There's something about a desert road at night that doesn't feel right. Maybe it's the silence, the kind that shouldn't exist, where you can't hear anything except the hum of your own engine and the occasional rush of hot wind across the window. Or maybe it's the darkness, the way your headlights only reach so far, and beyond that reach, nothing, just black. These are 3 stories sent to me by people who drove those roads. People who saw things, or were followed by things, that they still can't explain. And to this day, none of them drive alone at night anymore. Story 1. The Man on the Riyadh Road. This story was sent to me by a man I'll call Khalid. Khalid was 26 years old when this happened. He'd just finished a late shift at a logistics company outside Riyadh. It was around 1:30 in the morning, and he was driving home on one of the long desert highways that cuts through the outskirts of the city. He'd driven this road hundreds of times. He knew every turn. But that night, something was different. About 40 minutes into the drive, his headlights caught something on the side of the road. A man standing completely still, not walking, not looking for a ride, just standing there in the dark, facing the road. Khalid slowed slightly as he passed. He described the man as tall, very tall, wearing a white completely clean despite the fact that there was no village, no rest stop, no building of any kind for at least 15 kilometers in either direction, just desert. He told himself it was someone whose car had broken down. Maybe they were trying to flag someone down but gave up. He kept driving. 2 minutes later, his phone buzzed. A call from his wife. He answered on the car speaker. She asked when he'd be home. He told her 20 minutes. They talked for maybe 30 seconds when he hung up. He checked his rearview mirror. There was a car behind him. He hadn't seen any headlights approaching when he was on the phone. But now, there was a vehicle sitting about 200 meters behind him. No high beams, just dim yellowed lights that barely lit the road. He didn't think much of it. He kept his speed at around 120. The car behind him kept the same distance, exactly the same distance. He sped up to 140. The gap didn't change. He slowed back to 100, still the same gap now. Khalid was starting to feel it. That cold, creeping feeling in the back of his neck that something was wrong. He turned on his high beams to try and see the vehicle in his mirror better. The reflection made it hard to tell what kind of car it was. A white sedan of some kind, maybe. He couldn't be sure. He took out his phone and called his brother, keeping one eye on the mirror. He told his brother about the car. His brother told him not to stop, to keep driving, to head straight for the nearest petrol station and pull in under the lights. Khalid remembered. There was a station about 8 kilometers ahead. He pushed the speed to 150 and watched the mirror dot the gap closed. Not quickly, slowly, deliberately, as if whatever was driving that car wanted him to notice. He hit 160. The station lights appeared in the distance. He pulled off the highway and swung hard into the forecourt, stopping under the bright white fluorescence. He sat there, hands gripping the wheel, heart going. He looked back at the highway. The white car passed without slowing, without stopping. It disappeared into the dark. Khalid sat there for 15 minutes before he felt calm enough to drive again. He called his brother back. He told him the car was gone. His brother asked him to describe the man he'd seen standing on the road. Khalid described him, tall, white thobe, completely still. His brother went quiet for a moment. Then he said, That junction you passed, the one with the broken barrier. A man died there 8 months ago. His car went off the road. They found him in the desert the next morning. He was wearing a white robe. Khalid didn't say anything for a long time. He has never driven that road at night again. Story 2. The lights behind me. This happened to my friend Khalid. He gave me permission to share this. I'm using his real first name because he wants people to know this actually happened. Khalid was a long-distance truck driver for a logistics company. He drove the highway between Jeddah and Medina regularly, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. He knew every kilometer of that road. One night, about 18 months ago, he was making a return trip, empty truck, no cargo, heading back to Jeddah. It was around 2 a.m. He said the road was completely dead. No other vehicles for as far as he could see. He'd been driving for about an hour when he noticed headlights behind him. That wasn't unusual. The road gets quiet, but it's not completely empty at that hour. He registered the lights and didn't think much about it. But then, about 10 minutes later, noticed something strange. The lights were the same distance behind him. He had been doing about 110 kilometers per hour. He'd slowed down a little, sped up, normal variations, and every time he checked his mirrors, the lights were exactly the same distance away, not getting closer, not falling behind, just matching him perfectly. He thought it was another truck driver. Cruise controls set at the same speed. Makes sense, he let it go. But then, around 20 minutes after first noticing the lights, he came to a long downhill section of the road. If you know the Jeddah-Medina highway, you know these sections. His truck naturally accelerated going downhill. He reached 125, 130 kilometers per hour. He checked his mirrors. The lights were still the same distance behind him. Now he was paying attention. Slowed back down deliberately, well below his previous speed. He dropped to about 80, kept there for a full 3 minutes. He checked his mirrors. The lights were still the same, distance away. Whatever was behind him was not on cruise control. It was actively matching his speed. Every change he made, slowing, speeding, slowing again. He didn't want to believe what he was thinking. He tried something. There's a small petrol station on that highway, very small. Easy to miss, just a concrete structure with a single pump and a light. He knew exactly where it was. When he got to it, instead of indicating and slowing down, he suddenly, with no warning at all, pulled sharply off the road into the station. He sat there with his lights off and he watched the road. 2 seconds later, the vehicle that had been following him came into view and passed. He said it was a dark-colored saloon car, moving fast. No number plate visible from where he was sitting. Here's the part I still can't explain. He said the car slowed down after passing him. He could see the brake lights. It slowed and then it stopped. About 300 meters down the road from the petrol station. It just sat there. On the road, lights on, not moving. Khalid said he sat in that petrol station for 45 minutes without moving. The attendant was there. He went inside and sat with him. He didn't tell the attendant exactly what was happening. He just said he needed a rest. After 45 minutes, he went back outside. The road was empty in both directions. He called his company, told them he wasn't feeling well, and waited at that station until 5 a.m. when other trucks started using the road. Then he joined a convoy of 3 other trucks and drove the rest of the way to Jeddah without incident. He's never driven that highway. alone at night again. When he told me this story, I asked him what he thought the car was, what they wanted. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I drive that route twice a week. Empty truck, returning to the city. Same route, same time, always alone. If someone was watching the pattern, they would know that." He didn't say anything else after that. Story 3. What I saw in the sand. I'm going to share this last story in my own words, because it happened to me. This was about 8 months ago. I'm not going to say exactly where it was, because I don't want to go back there. Not even in my memory more than I have to. I was driving alone on a remote road in the western region. I won't say which one specifically. I had been visiting a location for work. I work in site assessment for a construction company, and the visit had run late. By the time I finished and got back to my car, it was past midnight. My GPS was routing me back along a road I didn't know. I had no choice but to follow it. The alternative was adding 3 hours to the drive, and I was already exhausted. The road was narrow. 1 lane each direction, no barriers. The desert was completely flat on both sides, just pale sand stretching out to the horizon under the moonlight. It was actually quite beautiful. The kind of view that makes you forget for a moment how remote you are. I was about 40 minutes into the drive when my car made a sound, a kind of soft thud from the front left. Then the steering pulled slightly to the left. I knew immediately what it was. A flat tire. I pulled over and stopped. I sat in the car for a moment. I checked my phone. 1 bar of signal, barely anything. I tried calling the company emergency line. The call failed. I texted my wife to tell her where I was. Sent my GPS location. The text showed sending for about 3 minutes, then failed. I was alone. No other cars had passed in the 40 minutes I'd been driving. No lights anywhere in any direction. I'd got out of the car. The silence out there is a different kind of silence to anything I'd experienced before. Not just quiet, it was like the air itself was holding still. I went to the boot and got out the spare and the jack. I was going through the motions, trying to stay calm and practical. Change the tire, get back in, keep driving. Simple. I'd been working on the tire for about 15 minutes when I noticed something. I noticed it because of the moonlight. The sand around the car was illuminated well enough that you could see the surface clearly, and the surface was undisturbed, flat and smooth, the way desert sand looks when nothing has walked on it, except about 8 meters in front of the car. Just outside the reach of my headlights there were marks in the sand. I stood up and walked towards them. They were footprints, coming from the desert, from out there in the darkness, walking directly towards the road, towards where my car was now parked. And they stopped, right at the edge of the road, right at the edge of where the tarmac begins. The prints came from the desert, reached the road and stopped, like whoever made them had stepped onto the road and then nothing. The road surface obviously wouldn't hold a print. I turned on my phone, torch, and shone it into the desert in the direction. The prints came from nothing, just flat sand in every direction. I told myself it was old prints. Someone who had crossed the road earlier that day, or even days ago. Prints can last a long time in undisturbed desert sand. There was a perfectly logical explanation. I went back to the tire. I was tightening the last bolt when I heard something. It was quiet, very quiet. But in that silence, it was unmistakable. the sound of sand, of something moving through sand. Softly, slowly, coming from behind the car. I stopped moving. I stopped breathing. I stayed still for what felt like a very long time. Crouched next to the tire, listening. The sound stopped. I don't know what I expected to happen next. Maybe nothing. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was the wind. I stood up slowly. I looked around the car. There was nothing there but the sand on the other side of the road. The side I hadn't been looking at had new prints in it, same direction. Coming from the desert, walking towards the road, stopping at the edge, fresh ones. I could see where the sand was still settling at the edges. I got in my car. I drove on the flat tire. I hadn't finished tightening the last bolt. For almost 2 kilometers before I stopped to finish the job. I kept my headlights on full beam. I kept looking in every mirror. I never saw anything. I don't know what made those prints. I don't know what made that sound. I know that the desert at night is full of animals. I know sand shifts. I know that exhaustion plays tricks on the mind. But I also know what I heard. And I know those second set of prints weren't there 5 minutes before. I haven't driven that road again. And I don't plan to. That's all 3 stories for tonight. If you've had something happen to you on a desert road or anywhere else and you want me to share it, my email is in the description. I read everything that comes in. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. Stay safe out there and try not to drive alone at night.